Yeah, our experience has been, and I don't know that this is everywhere, but in San Diego, LA, in this area, we have a lot of paid musicians and a lot of turnover in local churches. So it's been our experience that a lot of band members, worship leaders are largely unshepherded because they're not deeply rooted in a house. So our heart, me and my husband, has been to be that covering for worship leaders. And I wonder if you have insight on what do you feel like worship leaders need from a shepherd?
Wow. That's good. After leaving my church, when I went to work in other churches, I was still connected to my home church until my husband and I transitioned out many years later to help plant a church, and then we ended up at Fresh Start, where we are now. But I worked in other churches, just serving and getting to know pastors. And one thing that I think I will say is rubbed me the wrong way was that it seemed like some people were just interested in my gift and what I could do. That was off-putting, because I think musicians and worship leaders, when we meet a pastor or something, there is this idea or understanding that they are going to maybe be helpful or shepherding, actually care about you and take time to speak to you. But in New York, that wasn't, and I'm not coming from New York because y'all know I love you, but that wasn't my experience. A lot of the leaders and pastors, and even as I speak for some of my other friends that were in ministry, it didn't seem like leaders and pastors really cared, like they were trying to be there for you. And then some of what I encountered as well was, I think people thought that because you were so gifted or so talented that you maybe didn't need the extra reach out or the call. And so here's the thing, I'm a pastor now, so I get that a pastor can't be running after every single person and doing everything. But I do admire, I was employed at a church, which they're my family still, Pastor Heston and Lady Sharice Williams. These people are some of the sweetest people in the world. They actually care about every single person that comes into the doors. And when I tell you into the doors, we would be in a meeting and they'd be like, "Did you see that person with the blue hat?" And and she's like, "Yeah, his name is John." And they knew exactly where he was from, what block he lived on. It was this dedication and commitment to people that's why we're still in relationship right now, to be honest. And I think that just caring about the people that that are working with you and not treating them like a hireling. I think sometimes leaders, shepherds, have been hurt by musicians, and they've almost been treated like, people will up and leave, and so you kind of start to put up a wall so that you can protect yourself from these worship leaders or musicians. And I think that we have to begin to shift even the dynamic in relationship. I'm not a person that says you shouldn't pay musicians. I think that musicians should be paid. That's how I feel in general. But I also believe that there's something, I want to be at a place where I would do it for free. Does that make sense? So yeah. I think paying musicians, and I don't know why I got into this, but I think that's the ideal. I don't think it's necessary, but I understand allowing people to eat from where they're sowing. You understand? But I don't think you should be there unless you would do it for free. And that's currently the situation I'm in, and a lot of situations I have been in. It has to really be about worship. It has to be about who he is and us serving this body of Christ and recognizing that we're helping move something along that's way bigger than us. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. That's good.
Totally. I mean, I agree 1,000% too. I'm grateful for our squad, and our squad knows that, and it's been this way for years. If I call you and I say, "Hey, I got such and such a date, and you want to rock," if your first question is, "How much?"
Yeah, it's a no.
I can't. I just can't. I know it's rather. I've been full time in ministry for the last 15 years, and 13 of those years has been as a worship pastor in music, and so I get it, but that can't be They know, like, it's either yes or no, you want to do it, and of course we will have the conversation about, because they know our culture of honor is that we pay or stipend, we try to do what we can for every musician that we can. But if the reason why you saying yes is because there's something monetary in it, then I want you to do it because you love to. Because here's the thing, there's gonna be times when we can pay a whole heap, and there's gonna be times when we can't pay a ton or whatever. But the reality is that that's really, the money is not connected to your contentment. If you aren't content and enjoy to do it before the money gets in it, then $250 ain't gonna do it, especially when you need $700.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the light bill's due and the rent is due, and you $700 short. This $250 ain't gonna, so it's like so up and down if you don't.
You know what? Can I say this? I think that's why we need to really be intentional about raising up people in our churches. I think when there's a heart and a desire for God, we can't serve both God and money. If your motivation is money, it's going to be tricky no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what. And I think some of the most rewarding moments in my life were in times where it wasn't about the money. Now, being where I am, I could charge a church. I could be making a bunch of money in a church to do X, Y, and Z. I won't even do that at this point because I don't want to be here because of money, and that's literally why I've tried my hand at songwriting and to make a career out of music that doesn't have anything to do with like trying to be totally dependent on the local church. Yeah. I think it's a heart posture thing, and I think some people are called to the church and they're able to be taken care of, and I think that's beautiful. But I do believe that like when money becomes your reason for doing this, it gets tricky and it's hard to worship. And I think that affects the sound. It affects the relationship even between pastors and and minstrels and musicians and singers. And it just gets weird. And I think sometimes we don't talk about that weirdness and we just let it fester, and then it becomes an issue. And it's sad, but what I will say though real quick is that I have seen some super dedicated and devoted musicians, worship leaders, singers, media folks, because they're a part of the worship experience now too, with all of this technology.
Now they're the pastor's best friends. Before pastors didn't even know their tech director's name. Now, yeah, Eddie, let's grab some lunch.
Right. That cameraman is on the worship team, okay? Now that like when you have, I didn't forgot what I said, but what I was saying. But I think when you have people that are like after God's heart and like and doing it in this way, I really feel like the Lord can like make something beautiful out of it. And then you want to be there. It's this mutually like beneficial thing that happens. And I feel like it's just pure worship to the Lord. And I think anybody wants to be there. It's not even about money. And we'll learn how to kind of talk through and deal with some things. But I do think these musicians and folks need just love and conversation, not being inauthentic and not trying hard to do something that's not real.